Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is Sunday, the 30th of August. If you don't know, it is Santa Rosa de Lima's Day, the saint of Peru, America, and the Philippines. So thank you one more time, Mónica Rodriguez, for giving part of your valuable time. And thank you because you are escaping from your family and your children and your husband. So thank you once again. As usual, let me be grateful, please. I love being grateful because there is only one life. Let me, close this. I was checking exams, as you can see. Sorry. As all of you, I've been working. I am working and I will be working. Okay. I have some problems. Just a minute, please. Okay, gratitude. As I started using, as I started doing this like 3 Sundays ago, gratitude is a very important word for me, and I'm sure it is also for you. Gratitude, why? Because it makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. Do you agree or not?
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay, next Sunday, if I can do it, let me see. Next Sunday, we will have your, how do you say, the person who comes from your same country, countryman? Yeah, Gustavo, who will be talking about teachers as long life learners, and then Raj and Mary and the people you already know.
Well, you know that I'm very happy that Gustavo will also be joining you guys in this space. And I guess that we may have a surprise today because he told me that he could be joining us. He's my friend and we
Oh
were
my
chatting
God.
before we started. So probably he will join us today for some minutes.
So it will be a very happy and crazy meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love Gustavo, so don't miss his session. It's going to be
Yes,
great.
yeah. He's been to Peru a few times. I met him in
Yep.
Trujillo. I met him in Trujillo. Well, we'll also have Christine, Mauricio, Beatriz Erazo, who is present, Skip Gold, and I hadn't showed you this, but on October the 25th, we'll have these people from different countries, and we will be talking, discussing, reflecting about challenges and opportunities of the EFL English teaching in Latin America and in other parts of the world. And also Ruben and Esther, and also Rosemary and Tito Hidalgo, and Mónica Rosas and Glenda, and finally Eugenia from Argentina. I haven't been able to meet Mónica Rodriguez in flesh, face to face, but I guess we are friends of Gustavo. He's our friend in common, right? So I admire your work, Mónica. I saw you in Facebook, and I say, my goodness, it was this March, and you were already working. And then it was May, and you were working. And then it was May, and you continue working. And I
Oh,
said,
thank you for
June,
me. My
my
goodness.
goodness. And I said, when does she rest? And and
That's a
then I
good
saw
question.
and then I saw that also from the 23rd of June to up to 1 of July, the 1st of July, you were also working. And everything that you work with is about emotions, compassion, something that personally I love. And you continue working in August. And this is your beautiful family. Sorry
Oh,
that
my family, thank you for
yes,
this. Wow,
no,
I
no,
can't believe it. Thank you for
no,
this surprise, Jaime.
no, come on, look at their faces and their smiles. As they say, a photograph, what is the quote? A photograph speaks.
Louder than words, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you very much, dear Monica. Let me find your bio data and read a little bit about you before we start our beautiful morning today. Let me find it, please. I can't for some reason.
Welcome, Gus. Hi, Gus is with us already. I told you he was coming.
Okay, okay. Well, I can open the document with your biodata, Monica.
Oh, that's quite boring, so don't worry about that. Let's just enjoy our time together.
Okay.
You know, whenever anyone reads my biodata, I start feeling like I'm 100 years old. So let's just keep that.
The same thing happens to me. And I say, wow, is that me? Is that me? Am I that old?
People say, how could we do so many things in such a short time? Well,
yes,
we are.
That's true. That's true. So let's give Monica a welcome round of applauses, please. Thank you, Monica, for being here with us. And the screen is all yours. You may start.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaime, for this surprise that you prepared for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was touched. Thank you. Thank you so much. And you reminded me in a way of how hard I've been working. So now I feel like a little bit more stressed, but of all the things I've been doing. But I just have to say that I feel very passionate about what I do. And in many cases, I don't realize, I don't feel it as an effort, you know, I enjoy it so much. And I always try to share ideas. And I think that what we teachers do is so valuable at so many different levels, especially, of course, in my area of expertise and what I love, that is affectionate teaching and the importance and the role of emotions in everything we do. So today I prepared a session to talk a little bit about this, but aligned, I think 100% to what Jaime was saying at the beginning of the presentation with this gratitude slide. I thought about starting precisely our session together on the right tone, on the right empathy and gratitude tone. So I was thinking about playing a little game together. How about that? Would you like to do that? Will you join me?
Let's play. Let's play. Good morning, Gustavo.
Hello, Jaime. Hello, everybody. Hello, Moni.
Hello, Gustavo. For those people who don't know Gustavo, that's Gustavo Gonzalez, the very famous Gus from Argentina.
And do not miss his session. Is it going to be next week?
Yes, next Sunday.
Week?
Yeah, this is the Argentinian week.
That's fantastic. Okay, the Argentinian gang.
Yes.
Right, from all over here. So, okay, I've got a little game for us to get us started this morning to kick off this session. So, who would be the first one that would like to play with me? Any volunteer?
Yes, I nominate Mauricio.
Mauricio? Mauricio, have a look.
Sorry,
I have something for you.
That's okay.
This is going to be a gratitude game that I prepared for us to share this morning. Mauricio, could you pick up a color? We've got green, red, orange, purple, blue, yellow.
Blue.
This one. This one.
Yes.
Blue. So let's go with blue. So Mauricio, in your case, I will ask you to please share with us, name or share with us an object that you are grateful for or that you've been grateful for during pandemic.
I love that activity.
Okay. So if I want to mention, I want to mention my tablet. Yeah, because with my tablet, I have been able to use a lot of apps through Zoom and use it in my classes with my students. And I found out that I had many apps that I didn't use until now. So I'm really grateful to this is one of the objects.
Thank you, Mauricio, so much. Okay, who's next? jump into the mic or?
Me, Glenda.
Glenda. Okay, so blue is out, right? So these are your
Right.
options now, Glenda.
Green.
Oh, is green your favorite color?
It is.
Aha, so here we go. So green represents our connection to gratitude in terms of a memory. A memory, Glenda, that you are grateful for. A memory. Take your time.
I have so many. Perhaps something that I remember that has just popped into my mind is the time I went to Honduras, and the time it was unexpected. Yes, I had traveled to be a speaker in their convention. And the people were very, very, very kind. They organized a closing event where they played music, and it was all by teachers. It was very nice because, I mean, the man playing the violin was a teacher. The people, so it was all teachers. But I hadn't seen. I mean, it was like showing themselves as in another things they could do, showing their talents. Yes, and it was very nice. And I can tell you what happened, how this began and how then it ended. It was a beautiful closing ceremony, and then I get to talk to other people and made very, very good friends from then on, and I still have these friends till now. It was very, very sweet. Very nice.
Thank you, Glenda, for sharing this memory. Wow, I loved it too. I could even connect to that moment, right? Okay, who's next? Let's do a couple more.
Come on. Yeah, Juan in Colombia.
Juan, these are your colors.
Yellow.
Yellow. Here we go. So yellow in our gratitude game represents a place. So can you please, Juan, name a place that you feel grateful for?
Well, home, here, my apartment. Yes, because I think that thanks to the pandemic, I have spent lots of time with my family, time that probably I was not spending before it, yes, due to much work, which is also good, but I have learned and realized that spending time with family and working at the same time is really meaningful.
I agree so much, Juan. Thank you so much for sharing. I have to say that I share some of those feelings as well. And I think that even though it's been crazy, right? Because we are living crazy times, and it's taking us such a journey, right, to get where we are today. In many aspects, we have also discovered the blessings, right, that I call of this pandemic, being able to share more time with our family and being able to fit in aspects of our lives that used to be quite isolated, right? We used to work a certain couple of hours, and then our kids were at school, and then we are all together, and this is a chaos, right, sometimes, but at the same time, a blessing. This is what humanity is about, right? Yes. We humans are kind of blessed and cursed with things at the same time, depending on our perspective, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you for sharing. Last one. So I would like to invite some of the students that are joining us today. Naila, Luciano.
Charo, Maria, Jair, Jesly, Ariana, Luciano, Andreina.
So jump into the mic, and you will have to choose the last color.
Anybody, please? No final exam if you participate.
Right,
okay, here I am.
Okay, Jesly.
Thank you. Look at your colors, Jesly. Which one would you pick?
Orange.
Orange. Okay, so orange in our gratitude game represents your choice. You can say whatever you feel grateful for. It can be a memory, a person, a place, an experience, an object, some food that you are grateful for, whatever you feel you want to be grateful for today.
It can be my friends.
Oh, okay, excellent.
Yeah, I feel grateful for the friend that I have now. They help me a lot with my I don't know, with my personality sometimes. We travel together too. They have that energy. You know, when you feel like down, when you don't want to do anything, they are there always. So I like
to
it.
lift you up, right? To lift us up in all the sense of the words, right? This is what friends do. This is what I feel friends such as Gustavo does for me, right? Friends are such a blessing in our life. So very important also, because we'll be speaking today about the importance of being effective in our process. And let me just start by saying that we teachers are naturally effective beings, right? What we do is intrinsically emotional, right? We cannot separate that from what we do, because precisely what we create with our students are not business relationships. There is no contract involved, but there is this emotional contract. We create bonds. And through that bond is that learning happens, true learning happens. So today I thought about preparing this session for you to talk and reflect a little bit about the role of emotions in whatever we do, starting from the kickoff point that we are all emotional beings as teachers. And we are, I would even say, experts in terms of emotions, because there is no learning without emotions being involved, right? So the only thing we'll be doing today is just simply reminding ourselves of our emotional literacy as teachers and reminding ourselves of the importance of this. So let me just start sharing my screen, if I can do that. So I can start with my presentation for today. This is the game we've just played. This is something that you can do with your students in whatever moments of the class you choose to do it. I chose to do it with some realia, with some real objects today, just to show you that we don't need that much technology all the time, right? So I could just do it with my ice cream sticks, and you could do it using some of these wonderful tools that we have online. You know, in many cases, to play this game with my own students, I use Word Wall. That is an application that is for free, and you can have there the possibility of creating like a roulette with the colors and so on, and so that you can then use it through technology, whatever you choose. But as Jaime was saying at the very beginning of our session, being grateful is very important, and being grateful helps our students create this learning environment that is going to be conducive to deep learning. There is and I will share with you today some ideas on the latest research on brain science that is telling us that our cognitive and emotional processes do not go separated. And if we really think about deep learning, the evidence shows us something that is quite simple to understand, and something that probably we already know in some manner, but now we have the evidence for this. In this beautiful piece of research from the beginning of last year, this is from the Aspen Institute. What they are telling us is, if we think about creating learning experiences that are valuable and that are lifelong learning, if you want, we need to understand that there are 3 different areas that need to be developed at the same depth, okay? On one hand, when we've got in orange there, and I will use the first part of my pyramid to represent that, cognitive skills and competencies. We know this. We are experts on these fields, right? So whenever we talk about cognitive skills, we are thinking about creative thinking, we are thinking about problem solving, critical thinking, analysis, reflection, yes, all these cognitive processes that are essential for learning. We know this, we are experts, I would say, at this. We have created systems, we have created curricula, we have created assessments, we have created tests, we have created programs that are very much focused on developing, yes, these cognitive skills. But what evidence is showing us is that at the same level, emotional skills are absolutely important, emotional competencies. What are emotional competencies? This is when we talk about recognizing our strengths and weaknesses, yes, connecting to empathy from our own perspective, analyzing situations, and especially during pandemics, probably it has become very evident the role of the importance of emotions in the learning process. But at the same time, we also need to consider the third element of our pyramid, yes, that is also present there. And the third element is social and interpersonal skills. Any learning that is considered deep learning is social. We do not learn about things that we do not consider are relevant at a social level. Okay, I will talk a little bit about that later on. So this is our third phase pyramid, yes, related to the same graph you're seeing on the screen right now. But what we know is deep learning only happens when the three of them are happening at the same time in our learning process. When our cognition, our emotions, and our social aspects are woven and interwoven together to create something that is one piece. It is not separated. And this is something that I will talk a little bit more later on. So this is my idea of the third phase pyramid and the importance of deep learning. Then if you are interested in having a look at the paper, you just send me an email. I've got the complete paper and it's a jewel. There are many resources also involved on how to do this, how to leverage, if you want, the emotional and social areas to the cognitive areas that we have been developing systematically for so many years in education. This is what we talk about when we talk about a whole approach to education. Yes, an integrative view of education. That is one of the keywords I will mention later today. So let's talk about our brain and our heart that for so long have been kind of approached differently, right? And we say, okay, are we going to listen to our brain or are we going to listen to our heart? Yes. What is that drives action? What is it that drives impact so that we can connect our students to this? And the first concept that I would like to say and to share with you is that according to the latest research on brain science, our feelings, our thoughts, and our social responses engage with each other to create precisely the learning experience. So how we feel and how we think are not separate. Emotional intelligence, as it is called, and our intellectual intelligence, EQ and IQ, are precisely part of the same game, parts of the same mechanisms. And what we know due to research is also that real learning happens when we bring ourselves as humans to the process. And when I say we, I'm referring to both teachers and students. Real learning happens when we bring our humanity as teachers at a 100% level, and when our students bring themselves as humans to the learning process, because we do not learn anything that we do not consider is relevant for our lives.
Yeah, that's
okay?
true.
So this is something that I will share some more ideas on the latest research on brain science about this relevance, this salience. But basically the idea that I wanted to share here is that how we feel makes us into what we think and the other way around.
I agree with you.
Being such cognition influences emotion and emotion influences cognition. And it's a process. They are not separate. And I wanted to choose this image to refer precisely to this integration of cognition and emotion. We used to think about heart and brain separate, and I think that cognition and emotion could be represented by a work of art such as this one from Jackson Pollock, that you know that he had this style of blending colors together, right? So we could think about cognition being the blue, yeah, emotion being the light blue, and experience being all those white flashes and red splashes that you see in this piece of art. It's part of the same painting. It's part of the magic of this image that cognition and emotion build together. It's not one thing or the other. So I think that this was like a nice visual way of understanding the integrative nature, I would say, of cognition and emotion.
Could I say something, Monica?
About this idea?
Monica, could I say something?
Go ahead.
Thanks. That is something that I always talk to my students and people. Emotions and intelligence, they always go together, walk together, work together. But the problem is who wins, who beats the other. Sometimes our emotions may take us to do something wrong, but our intelligence says, hey, one moment, stop, think about it. Think about what you're going to do. Or maybe the opposite. Our feelings are stronger and they win, and then we do something wrong or incorrect. So I think that we every day are in that struggle, feeling and thinking and feeling, and the same thing, and that is happening these days more than ever. Because shall I go? Shall I do? Shall I talk? Shall I correct? Shall I? And we are questioning all the time. Thank you. Anybody?
And I would like to invite all of us to think together about this not being, again, the key word is integration. I will talk about this later today, but it is not one or the other. It is just one serving the other in terms of us achieving our best potential as humans, okay? We all know that the nature of emotions is they could propel the learning process or they can hinder it, right? So depending on how we manage those emotions, that is going to be the level of contribution. Because what we also know is that whenever we want to really achieve something in life, whenever we really want to learn something, it's because we care about that piece of knowledge. And we care when we can see a connection between that and our reality, our real world. How many times have you as students, so let's think of ourselves not as teachers now, okay? But in our times as students, how many times did you ask your teachers, why should I learn this? How can I apply this in my life? Well, let me just tell you a personal story. I was one of these persons. I was like a nightmare student in secondary school, because I was this girl that was constantly asking teachers, why should I learn this? What's the purpose? How do I use this in my life? Because I really needed to understand the connection of whatever they were trying to teach me with my life. And let me just say that very few teachers could answer those questions. But I had this very one chemistry teacher. Just for you to know, I hate chemistry with all my heart. I hate chemistry. But I had this chemistry teacher that was always precise in answering my questions. Why should I learn about this chemical reaction? And he was always connecting this chemical process with something that happens in nature, with something that happens in everyday life, with driving a car, with what happens in the process of an engine when you start a car, and so on and so forth. So I could understand that what he was teaching separately in chemistry was part of the world. I think this is another challenge we have in education. We teach in a way that does not resemble the world. We teach subjects so separately, so isolated. But when we understand the world as one, not as a maths problem, not as the third conditional in English, not as a history data or whatever. The world is one.
Can we hear some comments, please? Anybody?
I just wanted to make a comment about what you were saying, Jaime, about the head and the heart always getting in the way sometimes. And just noticing that when the emotion is very high, the intelligence is not high. When the emotion is high, the intelligence is low, because the reptilian brain takes over and we don't make very good decisions. So we need to stop and say, what am I choosing? Is that what you were referring to, Monica, how the two are connected?
Yeah,
absolutely. And what I'm referring to is based on emotional regulation. Okay,
yeah,
we can make the best use of our emotions when we can manage them and regulate them. And let me just clarify something, just for the record. I am not referring to not covering up or not paying attention to those emotions that are affective, that are difficult. What I'm saying is exactly the opposite. Those emotions are the ones that teach us the most about ourselves and about the way we see the world. So we need to make our sessions, our classes, an open space for our students to connect to those emotions, whatever they are, so that we can help them understand how to regulate them, how to regulate their anger, their fury, their frustration, all these emotions we are going through, and channel them into positive action. What do I mean by positive action? Remember that I mentioned, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, yeah, that is going on right now in the States and in the whole world, I would say. The origin of this social movement is anger, is frustration, and is people saying, I'm fed up with this. I don't want this anymore for our societies, okay? But it is regulating that anger, regulating that intolerance into concrete action that has a positive impact on society. Right?
Okay, Monica, I had a comment, okay? Thank you so much for letting us know about the example about the chemistry teacher. And I want to ask you something. I mean, we need to teach a lot of grammar topics, you know, third conditional, comparatives. What is the best way that we can answer the student the question, why, okay, we are saying, okay, today we have to cover the third conditional. Teacher, why are we going to use that? I mean, what is the real use in everyday life? I mean, what is the way that we can approach or answer that kind of questions, especially when it comes to grammar topics that we must teach?
Okay, let me just give you an example that happens. It happens to me all the time, especially when we have to go through, for example, narrative tenses with students, which is another nightmare, right? And so the question is, how do we help our students see the relevance in that? How do we make relative clauses or third conditional or reported speech or tenses or whatever relevant for them? Because this is a key, I would say, key words in this sentence, for them, not for us. So for example, when I teach narrative tenses, what I say is, when we need to tell our story, when we need to tell the story of our life, we need to use different tenses for that. And we really need to make a difference between what we used to be, or who we used to be, and who we are today, okay? So it's about telling the story of your life. It's about telling about your impact in the world. And those are just tools to communicate who you are. I think that when we think about grammar, we really need to go into these aspects of, okay, in order to show who we are, to communicate who we are, in order to communicate our story, we need tools. And those tools for communication are based on grammar. So if you ask me, we have to teach grammar. But why do we teach grammar? And I think, Mauricio, I hate giving advice, but I can just share my own experience, okay? Something that has worked for me is how this could be relevant for my students. And this is gonna be different for each person, I would say, and for each of your groups. So the question is, what are their interests? How can I make this relevant for them? And in many cases, that involves, is the same as with our kids. In many cases, that involves going to uncomfortable places that we don't like or that we don't agree, okay?
Moni, can I say something?
Yes.
Can I add something to Mauricio's question?
Yes,
because it goes on the same page of what you are saying. I think that in order to make the relevant and meaningful to the student, it has to be emotional. So what I do is to make them feel that there is an emotional connection to any grammar structure they are learning. And what I do, for example, Mauricio, is when I teach the present perfect, I've seen books with this typical question: have you ever ridden a camel? Have you ever seen a ghost? And maybe this is something totally out of their reach. So instead, I changed that. I said, have you ever told a lie? Have you ever cheated? And like this, there's a voice. Yeah,
yeah, someone, I could hear someone speaking.
Well, that's what I wanted to say now.
I would like to add to what you have been saying there. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Moni or Moni?
Monica.
Monica. Okay, Monica. Okay, Monica. Well, from the beginning, you were starting to say how cognitive and emotional and social, these three domains, how they must interact, and that's critical because we live in a systemic world. We don't live in isolation. And I think that for many, many years, this is the way we have been taught. And for generations, you go back to the industrialization. And when industrialization began, you had, for example, you had Ford, the Ford Motor Company, and Ford, the original owner, he needed factory workers. And so he had to train his factory workers on a whistle. And still today, even in schools, we have a bell system that begins and ends at a certain period of time, and then workers shift and move. So basically, our system today, even in schools, is based on that type of thinking, the industrialization, where you do things in a linear, sequential, transactional form. However, today, that has to be put on the side, and that would be left brain working there, because your left brain is usually more so of linear thinking, more so of sequential thinking. And so you kind of learn that. And so when we go back and we place this into even our classes today, when you go into a classroom, teachers are still living in isolation. Very rarely do you have teachers who say, you know, who will say, "Hey, come on in my class. Anybody want to come in my class and observe and, you know, look at me." Very simple. I mean, teachers are still very, you know, very isolated in their way of thinking, and they don't want anyone to walk into their classroom. And so this type of thinking still persists. In fact, in education, I think we're one of the last institutions who are still way behind. And that's why it's been, you know, so difficult for a lot of teachers to jump onto the technology, because they're not used to, you know, using other skills. You know, they're still thinking about, you know, doing a board and I'll give you an assignment and an exercise. And that's very sequential again. You know, grammar, we teach grammar. We teach grammar in a very isolated way. Like, you know, you were saying, we don't teach an infused grammar. Let's take a reading piece and let's look at the grammar from the reading piece. So we're reading, let's say, Ghost of a Country, and then we see a sentence there. We take that sentence and look at the grammar within the reading rather than, you know, saying, okay, well, now it's grammar time, let's go to a different book. But take what you're reading and seeing how these words or these sentence structures affect the meaning of the narrative of the reading.
And especially, Jorge, I would add something else to what you're saying. I agree 100%, and I think it's also aligned to what Glenda was sharing with us in the chat. And it has to do with the relevance, and it has to do with people telling their stories. And our stories are not our students' stories. So how do we help them connect grammar, whatever we are trying to teach, grammar, vocabulary, whatever it is, into their own meaning making to build up their own stories, you know, to develop their voice, to develop their views of the world. I think that one of the challenges, and I think this is in line with what you're saying, Jorge, is this question that in general we teach from our teacher's head, okay? We transfer that, and this connection sometimes with our students' world, with our students' reality. So basically, I think it's about making things real. And now, again, touching base on what Gus was sharing before, there is no reality without emotion, okay? So we make it emotional when we let these tools, call it grammar, call it vocabulary, call it whatever, be a vehicle of our students telling their own story, constructing and building and enriching their stories and their visions of the world, right? So I think that this is a little bit in line. I couldn't read everything on the chat, but I think in line with that. And I would like to ask you, if you allow me now, because the question is, how do we do this in our teaching, right? I think this is one of the big challenges we've got, right? So I've got an idea that I would like to share with you precisely related to this. How do we do it? And I think that this is one of the keys. We need to slow down. We need to slow down in order to create space for this relevance to appear. If we really want to create effective classrooms, we need to listen to our students' voice. We need not only to listen to their voice, but to offer them choices. And I think that one of the many things that go in general against this is that as teachers, we are always in a hurry, you know? We always have to cover more content. We always have to go through more units of the book. We always have to finish assignments. We've got the test. We've got the, in many cases, the international test. So we have to do a lot of more exams. Many, many things happening at the same time. We are always rushing as teachers. And I think that if we really want to embed our classes with an affectionate style, we need to slow down. We need to create space. We need to, you know, jump on the brake and use the time in our classes, not only for content, but for content that is transmuted into meaning-making stories. Using the time in our classes to explore to wonder, to make sense of things that are happening in the world. And through those situations, we will find 100 opportunities to teach our grammar, for instance, okay, coming back to grammar. But we need to create the dispositions for learning. You know the famous disposition for learning? We want our students to want to learn whatever we are trying to teach. But we need to create the disposition, and the disposition only happens through emotion. And this is something interesting from brain science that we use about this idea of slowing down, yes, of creating space in our classes. Empathy and compassionate perspective taking happen in the same areas of our brain that are used and that are involved in brain activity during rest. Do you see my point here?
Yes,
Empathy, compassionate perspective taking light up the same areas of the brain that are lit up and that are light up during rest. My point is, if we do not create space, if we do not create meaningful silence in our classes for reflection, the salience will never appear because we go so fast that our students do not have time to chew up, see meaning, and see that meaning of what we are trying to teach into their own lives. So my idea is we need to slow down if we want to create these dispositions for learning that are always emotional. Because we want to learn something that we feel is important. Not only that we know it's important, okay, with our brain. Something that we feel is relevant for us. What do you think about this idea of slowing down? I know it's a challenge.
I was going to say, Monica, that I don't remember who, but somebody who's going to present here, he or she said to me, Jaime, I see that most of the topics of these meetings have to do with feelings, emotions, and I said, yes, because we teachers are surrounded for so many webinars about how to do that, what to do in class, how to encourage the students to do this and to do that, that if we feel stressed with so many tools, we are forgetting something that you are talking about, that is the feelings of the teacher. If the teacher doesn't feel relaxed, if the teacher doesn't feel grateful, if the teacher doesn't feel positive things, of course, his or her classes are going to be the way they shouldn't be. So I agree 100% with you that we should slow down our classes, but first, slow down, as you said before, manage, regulate, and channel our emotions. First,
I would add, Jaime, that this idea of slowing down, it's also critical when we think about our well-being as teachers.
Yes, definitely.
And this is in line with what you said before. We create the emotional atmosphere of our classes and our sessions. We are the role models, meaning we have to start with ourselves. We are the first ones that have to slow down at many different levels and through many different techniques so as to find ourselves first and move away from the automatic pilot of just teaching in terms of delivering knowledge. Knowledge that is not built, knowledge that is only delivered by the teacher is not meaningful at any level for our students. And I know this is a big effort, and I know I'm asking a lot, but that's why I am suggesting this idea of let's slow down, let's select very carefully the content, because something else has to happen first so that knowledge or content can then be created. We need to engage them. If they are not engaged, no knowledge is built, but engagement does not happen with our students continue to sit down and just listen to whatever we have to say. Engagement is active. They need to become active learners, you know, and that's why we talk so much these days about student centricity. We've been speaking about student centricity, and the pandemic has really created a very positive synergy for us to create these ideas in our classes.
Mm-hmm. Monica, I'm just appreciating what you're saying, because I think Marshall Rosenberg, who taught nonviolent communication, will often say connection before direction. You know,
yes.
if we connect and they relate to you, they're likely to hear what you're saying, and empathy before education. So those were some of the terms he used, which were very helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely, that is what I believe in, and I think that these are connection. Okay, these are not isolated moments. When we create empathy, when we create a classroom environment that is safe, that is welcoming, that is questioning, okay, where we really throw a deep question and we stop and listen to what they've got to say. This is another thing we teachers don't do much. We feel very uncomfortable with silence in many cases. And silence is the only moment where reflection happens, where critical thinking happens, where problem solving happens. So it is absolutely essential, but one thing is conducive to the other. We know through a lot of references and through a lot of evidence that our academic performance improves when we are emotionally engaged in whatever we are trying to learn and whatever we teachers are trying to teach. So it's crucial, right?
Monica, hello.
Yeah.
Here is Hannah.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to complement something what you have said. You mentioned that you are asking a lot to do, but definitely it's a great situation because it really works. It really works. So it's really effective as the name of your speech. And I could say that reducing the filter of emotional feelings, being everybody in a zone of comfort, being relaxed, then comes the process of learning. And I think that it doesn't matter if we mention the name of the structure that we are going to teach, is to go through stories, is to go through the use. And then after that, by the end, just to mention, oh, guys, we have worked today with a third conditional. So it doesn't matter the name of the structure. The inductive method, it really works. I'm definitely sure if your chemistry teacher would have started the story of their combination of elements or situations through the story of the engine of the car, of an accident, or what could have happened, you would have never asked why we need this. So when you see something that is useful, when you see something that is relevant, that if you see, okay, then this is what I need. This is what I need to express. And exactly the same as we learn our mother tongue. When we were little kids, nobody told us, you're talking about the past, now you have to talk about the present continuous. Forget it. We were just speaking. We were just doing the same.
Through doing.
And it's exactly the same. Sorry?
And we learn through doing.
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
know that some weeks ago, I was attending a very, very interesting week of learning with Mary Young in Mordino Young. She's a very well-known brain scientist and specialist in emotions. And she was also talking about this, about the importance of connection, about the importance of not giving so many names, but just helping our students see the meaning in how that is relevant for them, you know. But when I said that it's a big effort, what I tried to imply was that it is a big effort because it involves a paradigm shift for us teachers. And it involves something that in many cases we have not been trained for. Yeah, that's why I think it's so important that we have students of the profesorado, of the teaching training colleges here today, because we really need to understand, you know, that Ken Robinson, one of his most famous quotes is that we do not need to evolve in education. We do not need evolution. We need a revolution in education. And I think that the revolution is precisely understanding that we live in one world, that we learn through action, we learn through doing. And there is no relevance in just learning facts to pass a test. I'm sorry that I know this may go against many of the things that we have to do as part of the educational system. But I always say the same thing because, you know, we teachers and teachers come to me and they say, okay, but I just have to go through the testing period. I have to go through, and the answer is, yes, I know. But, and then there are other teachers that come and say, I do not have the institutional support to talk about this. And I always say, there is always an area of impact that we teachers have. That is, whenever we close the door, virtually or literally, of our classroom, whatever happens in there, it's up to us. We create that environment. We create that atmosphere through who we are, okay? Because it cannot be imposed. You cannot talk to your students about emotional regulation if you are absolutely deregulated when you come to class. Okay?
Yes,
because
yes,
you're not walking your talk.
Yeah,
So students do not believe in what you say because you are not walking your talk, and so relevance disappears into thin air.
Or asking them to be punctual when you are not, and things
For
like
instance.
that.
Okay.
exactly.
Absolutely. So have a look at this image I'm sharing with you. Knowledge is also social because our brain is social. We human beings are social beings. Think about what we've been through in all these months of pandemics, and we are still suffering. One of the things we are suffering the most is being detached, physically detached from our students. We need the touching, we need that hug, we need to look into their eyes, and those are the things we are missing the most, because knowledge is also a social construct. We learn things that we believe are relevant at a social level, okay? That are relevant in terms of trying to change some things in our world. So it's very important that we use these concepts because we know that our brain is social to make the learning experience also social, okay? To make them share their views, build their ideas, and to try to use that knowledge precisely to impact the world, their world, okay? Even if it is impaired, even if it is in a group. So I think it's really important to talk about that. I have some questions for you, my dear teachers, because I think that when we teach through the emotional lenses, we are also talking about values. And I think that value-driven teaching is absolutely relevant these days. So 5 questions for us to explore our values. And you can use these questions with your students. Of course, this is more for adolescents and adults, okay? But you can adapt these questions for kids as well. So deep inside, what do you care for? Let's give ourselves 1 minute to reflect on what do you really care as a teacher deep inside, and I would like to hear some ideas about what you really care for as an educator. Can you share some ideas with me? What would be the first items that would come to heart, not to mind, but to heart when you have to answer this question? What do you care for as an educator? Jaime, you will be first.
Let me be honest. but people who are above us, because they run the language school or the institute, they want us to do this, to do that, and the layout of the website of the language center has to be this way. That we are, and because of I have talked to many teachers. First of all, we have to do some. We have to do what our bosses want, what they want to see in our websites, what they ask us to do, and that it's time consuming. So unfortunately, as you said before, first, we teachers have to be relaxed, without stress, but we are not. So we have to deal with that. But when we are in class, we know that we have to care for our students, for their feelings, for their emotions. I always ask my students, and they are here present, they cannot let me lie, that I always ask them, how are you? How do you feel today? Any problem at home? So then they feel that they are part of the class, that their feelings are important to me. So what I do care for is their feelings and my feelings, because I also tell them, I'm going through this, so sorry if I don't feel that happy today. Thanks.
And I know, Jaime, that in many cases, we do have to be aligned to what is asked from us, right? At an institutional level. And I always invite you to think about, this is what we have to do. And I would like to invite you to think about how you deploy that in your classes. Because for me, the key question word in all this is how you do it. Again, let's go back to this question of grammar. It is about grammar, it's how you teach it. It is not about having a period of assessments that you have to comply with. Then it's how you do it. Yeah. You can use, and I'm telling you, you can use the same test, okay, that you are given by the institution. Let's imagine a scenario where you are given a test that you have to do with your students. How will you go through that experience, okay? In your case, Jaime, because affection is important, you will create probably an environment for that, okay?
That's true.
And the test is still the same. So my point is, the key question word is how we do it. How we deploy that what that is expected from us. I think that the how is what makes all the difference in the world. It is not that we do not have to teach content. We have to teach content because it is our cognitive fuel and is very important. How do we teach it? What are our choices as teachers in terms of how we teach that? Because that is our choice. Yeah?
Monica, can I say something?
Yeah, I would like to say something as well.
Yeah.
All right, Beatriz, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
So
I totally agree with Monica. Yes, the how is very important. But I would like to add that the how is preceded by to whom I am teaching. If I have my students in mind, then the how is going to develop itself, right? So I would ask the big question, do I really know my students? Because going back to the question of grammar, my students want to know why and when they are going to be using certain grammar structures, but then I have to think in their situation, of their situations. I have to think what kind of people they are and when they are going to be using the language. So in that case, then we have this answer to provide to them, and the answer is going to be the how. I just wanted to add that thought.
Thank you, Beatriz, so much for that, because I would also like to add and build on something else now that we are talking about key questions and key question words about teaching and learning. It is not only thinking about who you've got in front of you, and precisely, Beatriz, this kind of exercise I'm sharing with you right now gives you extremely valuable information on who your students are what is relevant and meaningful for them, because it tackles precisely into values, okay? So when we understand what is the value-driven system they are going through, we can adapt our activities in terms of the what, the how, but we need to understand what moves them. That's why this kind of value exercise I'm sharing right now, and I am asking you to do it now as teachers, but you can definitely use this material and adapt to be used with your students, will give you a lot of insights in terms of who they are, right? And what is relevant and salient in their brains that maybe we do not even imagine sometimes. There was something, someone else that wanted to say something, right?
Me, Monica, Yeah, I think the word that's being mentioned quite a lot is the word connection. So
yes,
one of the things that I do care for is just to build up this connection at the very beginning of a lesson, or like, let's say at the very beginning of a year. So the first thing you need to do, or we all need to do as teachers, just to build this, good or create this good atmosphere in which students and the teacher feel comfortable or at ease, to interact with one another. Because if this relationship then is not built up, then it's going to be sort of hard, to have your students participate or say something in class. So that's one of the things that we as teachers need to think of when teaching. And another thing that I care for is, the type of information or the type of content that can be meaningful, that can be memorable for them. Because I truly believe that in today's globalized world, what our students need is, to have those abilities to be able to deal with today's world. Because we can teach them content, and that's true. But what kind of content are we delivering? If it's meaningful or not. So I think that's one of the things we all need to think of as well.
May I add something to?
Jorge.
Yeah, may I add something? I don't know who it was who was speaking, but you mentioned something about not just teaching content and teaching content in today's world. And content is important, but then we need to ask ourselves, what are the skills that we should be teaching our students or learn? I'm not even going to use the word student because it's pretty, I don't like using that term, but learners. Number one, to become lifelong learners. Number two, what are the skills that are going to be required of them in the 21st century and in the time that's in their future? Are those skills the same that we are teaching now, or have those skills changed? And if you go into it, I don't know if you're familiar with Tony Wagner and read his 7 survival skills, these skills come into play. One of them is being the ability to socialize, like you were mentioning there, Monica. Socialization is critical in the classroom today. You go into any workplace, any type of, real life workplace, not the classroom, because still classrooms are still, when you walk into I would still say 99% of the classrooms worldwide, you walk in there and you can immediately, when you walk into the door, they're still in rows. There is no type of socialization being conducive to socialization within the classroom. So right there, the mindset of the teacher is to teach something very linear, again, using that left brain, rather than being right brain and bringing all those emotions, that empathy, and bringing all those socialization skills into play in order to learn. Because you have 35 students, and the best way for them to learn would be for them to build their teams and then teach themselves what the content is. So like, for example, going back to that grammar, let's say you're teaching all the conjunctions, all these subordinate conjunctions related to cause and effect. Okay, they teach it to themselves. I don't have to teach them. But then they become socialized. They teach it to themselves. They kind of understand it. They can build on that. And pretty soon they become empowered with their own understanding.
The socialization of knowledge.
The socialization. And they're using their cognitive skills to ask their questions. Oh, what's the difference between if I use because John came here, comma, I gave him $10. What's the difference between saying that and since John came here, comma, I gave him $10? Well, so they ask these questions, and there's their cognitive skills of, going to critical thinking. Because if they don't ask the questions, then there is no critical thinking. Usually what happens in the classroom is that the teacher is the provider of the questions. So, and the students, they're already expecting, I'm going to answer.
And let me say, Jorge, something, that it's not only that the teacher is a provider of questions. What happens in many cases, and this is quite, I would say, a kind of, profile deformation of teachers, is that we do not only provide the questions, but immediately we provide answers to our own questions, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Because we don't give them time. In general, we feel uncomfortable with silence, and silence is their moment to become, I would even say, and I would even use the term, accountable for that question and for providing the answer,
Right.
So it's not only, so silence could be uncomfortable, yes, because they need that time to reflect, to analyze whatever question you've posed, but we need, and this is one of the, and I will be, I know that this is like family, so I will be using a very concrete phrase for this. One of the skills we teachers need to develop is how to shut up our mouths.
Right.
And I know we do it because we want to be like the providers of knowledge, but student centricity is not about us providing answers, but posing the right questions. And precisely it is aligned, Jorge, to something very important you are sharing, that is, to what extent are we preparing our students to the world outside, for the world outside there? And the world outside there is, I would say, 80% based on skills development. So how are we providing in our classes opportunities for our students to develop those skills? And I am not saying at any moment of this conversation that this is easy. And I will share why. Our students are not used to being active learners. They are used to sitting very comfortably and just listening to whatever we have to say. Becoming, and I am actively using the verb become, becoming an active learner involves a higher level of engagement, a higher level of responsibility for your own thinking, a higher level of effort, and in many cases our students are not used to that. But we have to push them into acknowledging that this is the way the world works. And the world of the school in many cases is very different from the world out there. The rules that apply to the classroom, to the four walls of the classroom, or the Zoom session of the classroom, however you want to call it, are quite different. They differ quite a lot from what happens out there in real life. And this is a famous gap between secondary school and the world of employment. That's why many of our students feel that we are not preparing them from the world outside.
Yeah, and then we have to be able to identify these skills. And then Tony Wagner, if you're familiar, with Tony Wagner, he comes up with some skills, and one of the skills is critical thinking, problem solving, and then but the critical thinking usually in the classroom says, okay, the teacher's doing the critical thinking because they're the ones asking questions, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be that the student is given something that is relevant to them, and then they ask questions about it. Not me asking questions about it, and I don't solve the problem for them. There is no problem solution, and there are multiple answers to a problem because you have different perspectives on viewpoints. So students are the ones who come up with their own answers, and no answer is right and no answer is wrong as long as you provide that evidence for it.
Absolutely.
One,
And growth mindsets and everything that we know is hard, but works in terms of building skills, yes? And this, Jorge, that you're saying brings me precisely to this idea of the seesaw between cognition and emotion. But because when we talk about skills, remember, we talk about the cognitive skills, as you were mentioning, critical thinking, problem solving, crucial for today's world. But we also talk about how to build better relationships with others, how to connect with empathy, how to do things for others. And those are the emotional and social skills that are also crucial for today's world. So what we need to understand is, remember I shared this idea based on evidence that cognition and emotion work together in terms of deep learning, right? So the idea of the seesaw is that we've got cognition and emotion are on maybe different positions, on two extremes, but they are parts of the same wood. I don't know if I'm clear. And something that I would like to say, and is connected to all these ideas we've been sharing, is that what creates a balance between cognition and emotion is something that in brain science is called the Salience Network. Whatever is salient for our students, remember we've talked about what is it that is meaningful for them? What is it that aligns to their values? What is it that aligns to whatever they care for, okay? This is what creates salience in the brain and what creates the learning disposition to learn whatever we are trying to teach. So we really have to work on lighting up the Salience Network. Let me just give you like a more like down to earth everyday example about how the Salience Network works. Let's imagine that we all have to buy groceries, right? So you go to the supermarket at a cognition level, at a cognitive level, you know that you have to buy a certain amount of groceries, right? Let's say a certain amount of apples for the week. And you buy those apples, you want to buy those vegetables and fruits because you know at an emotional level that those are healthy food to feed your family with, right? So we've got cognition and emotion, but then there is something else, because maybe you might choose to buy organic apples over the other non-organic groceries. And the choice of buying organic, it's because you know that there is an impact in the world through your choice of buying apples. Am I making myself clear with this? This is the Salience Network. This is the network that is activated in our brain, cognition and emotion together, that is saying, okay, if I buy organic, I could be creating a more positive impact in the world. So it goes beyond cognition and emotion, okay? So when we activate the Salience Network is when we activate meaning. When our students can, and I will say it again, we do not tell our students the value of what we teach. They can see the value of whatever we are trying to teach into their salience and their relevance networks. And that's why the other idea I wanted to share today, idea number 2, is this question of integration.
May I add something to your
Absolutely.
What is it, the seesaw? Yeah.
The seesaw, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right, okay.
The seesaw.
And as you can observe, you know, in the seesaw, it's a very good analogy. It's a good metaphor, because you have, first of all, the seesaw is inactive. It's just sitting there. So, and then you can have someone come and sit down on one end, and he's emotionally engaged about, you know, wanting to get on the seesaw to play, but there's no one on the other side. So then now you think, okay, how do I get someone to go? This is cognition. But then once the seesaw begins to work, it's when you have the third element, the socialization, that collaboration, that network of making this, you know, this activity salient, that it becomes meaningful. Otherwise, there is no meaning with just one emotion or with two. And if they both just sit at one end, and if it doesn't move, there is no socialization, there will be no laughter. There will be no crying if one falls off, or one, you know, something funny happens, or something occurs. So the socialization, then you have the triangle there, cognition, emotion, and socialization. Without those three elements, it's what brings balance to everything. One goes up and then the other one brings down, and you keep playing. And that's how the classroom should be. The classroom should not be a set where you have rows in your room. If you're still thinking that way and your rooms are still in that orderly manner, the militaristic form of dictatorial, totalitarian way of addressing a classroom because you want to be the front and center, you want to be doing all that lecturing and talking, and there's something wrong there. So you got to break it up and create it into a socialization. And then the me or myself, I become a facilitator rather than a lecturer. So the engagement is between the students, and I observe the engagement of the students, and they come together. But then again, you have to set up the classroom for that type of engagement. Just like here, you have a seesaw. You have to set up the seesaw in order for them to seesaw. Otherwise, there will be no seesaw, there will be no play.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Before we finish, I want to play a little game again with my ice cream sticks with you. And I would like, before we go into the reflections and comments and so on, to work on the colors of the traffic light, okay? So we've got red, yellow, and green. So I would like you to share with me in the chat, or if you want to jump into the microphone. Red is for, here it stands, red stands for something that you are questioning today, okay? A question that you are posing to yourselves through everything that we have gone through today, okay? Then we have the yellow, that is something that you have learned today, yes, something new you have learned today. And the green is for something that you would like to implement with your students, okay? So again, we have the question with the red one. What you have learned today is a yellow, and the green in our traffic lights is something you want to implement with your students. So you can jump into the chat to think about one idea for each of these three colors, or you can jump into the microphone as well, as you prefer.
Okay, anybody, please, anybody from any other city or country? Ruben, maybe, Gustavo, Nora, Emily, somebody else? So we can.
Okay, I can go.
Thank you, Gus.
Okay, yellow is my favorite color, Moni, so I'm gonna go with yellow. What was the question?
What did you learn today? Something you've learned, something new you've learned today.
I'm taking with me a phrase, something that you mentioned that I really agree with is we learn things we believe are relevant for our social life. I'm taking this is my takeaway, one of my many takeaways from your presentation, Moni.
Yeah, many takeaways.
Okay, someone else? Thank you, Gus.
A lady, maybe? A lady? One of the beautiful, intelligent, smart ladies we have in the audience today.
Oh, okay. So you're calling me by name?
Yes. I knew you would realize that.
I usually tell my students I am beautiful Beatricita, so.
So here we are.
My favorite color is red, so I go for red.
Something you are questioning today, or a question that you take with yourself to reflect on, Beatriz, because we know and we've talked about the importance of questions.
So yes, that is so interesting, because I think like I began question myself an hour ago, and I'm still asking myself, we know what we have to do with our students. We know that we have to help them express their emotions and face them. We know that we have to teach them to be reflective and to be critical thinkers. My question is, are we trained as teachers? Are we trained to do that? Do we know how to do that? Are we critical thinkers? Do we face our emotions? Do we take care of ourselves?
Oh, yeah.
are we so worried about what we have to do in our classes? Now in Bolivia, we're teaching, at least in my university, we are going to finish the year teaching remotely, virtually. Are we prepared for that? How do we take care of ourselves? So we are so focused on that we have to help our students, it's our main mission, but do we know how to do that with ourselves? Aren't we supposed to teach by example? And then I think I'm going to think about this for the rest of the year.
Very good, Beatriz.
And I celebrate the fact that you are asking yourselves all these questions. As you know, I focus a lot and I have specialized on teacher well-being. So I have many answers to your questions, but that is not my motto. We teachers have to find our own answers to those questions. And I think that the importance of creating these triggers through questions is that they make us reflect on our practice so as to improve it every day. We know what we have to do, but in many cases, we don't give ourselves, I would even say, permission to feel, permission to go through our own humanity, right? So as to then be able to transfer that in our classes.
Anybody else, please? Another beautiful, smart lady. I'm talking about you, Roxy.
Thank you. I knew it. Thank you, Jaime. Well, I will go also for Red. And in this time, I'm not going to be asking, as Beatriz did it, about me, but about my students. I wouldn't be asking when I start a new lesson or teaching something new for them. Is this really relevant for my student? If it is, okay, no problem. But if not, what do I have to do to make it relevant? What changes? What do I need to adapt to make him relevant and to be really involved and really important for him or her when they're teaching something? So that's what is something I'm going to be asking myself all the time when I start teaching something. Thank you, Monica, very much for this.
I celebrate that question too. Okay. Any other?
Me.
I would just like to add something to that.
All right.
If I may.
I want to choose green again. Yeah, thank you, Jorge. I'd like to choose green again. And well, I would like to implement, I have heard a lot about this choice boards. Yes. I have never tried that, but I will try to do a little bit more on that and give my students more choices so that they can be more autonomous also. It's not just me saying this has to be done this way. And let's see what comes up. I don't know now, maybe I will receive different kinds of homework, and perhaps it's gonna be, I don't know how I'll handle it, but I'll try, why not? I will choose one of the activities, the tasks they have, and we'll give them, okay, you can do this, if you prefer, you can do this. And see, and let's see what the majority chooses, and then I don't know. Then I'll tell the results how it went. I hope.
I love your idea, Glenda. And let me just contribute something else in terms of being practical, because when we talk about choice and voice, we have to be realistic, and we know that we cannot provide, as we may wish, maybe, like an open choice, but even a limited choice is giving our students a powerful message of, you have the ability, and I am empowering you to make a choice, maybe between A and B or A, B, and C. So it is a limited choice, but it's still better than nothing. And it's more realistic for us teachers, yes, because we cannot adapt to 35 different choices. We know that. But I think that, remember, Glenda, that whenever we offer a choice, our students feel seen, they feel listened to, and this is what they are giving them agency. I think that we cannot aim at anything more than just offering agency. That is absolutely crucial for skills.
Yes, that's what I want to try, the agency. That's what I will, that's my goal this semester.
So share it with me, okay? And then remember, I have shared my email with all of you, or you can contact me through Facebook or Instagram, whatever. I have a lot of practices. This has been, you know, it's always short time. I never have time to share everything I want, but I'm always available. You send me an email, I will be able to share activities with you that I already implemented. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Moni.
Okay, so I think time's up, Jaime, and I think we should be wrapping up right now. I think that I think that Jaime left us, right? Okay, maybe something happened to his connection. So let me just say thank you so much for sharing this time together. It worked exactly as I imagined it, that it was, you know, ida y vuelta, building ideas together. This is what I like the most in these kind of sessions, because you teachers have a lot of knowledge. You have been doing so much, not only in times of pandemics, but we have all the resources we need in ourselves and through our own experience. So I always like having these sessions just to validate how much you can build on your own, you know? Sometimes when we create just the right environment, all these beautiful ideas, all these beautiful contributions come up. Okay, so it's just a question of triggering that, you know, using some triggers for you to be agentic, if you want, in your own teaching.
So thank you, Monica, and I'm not sure Jaime is here, so let's give Monica a round of applause.
Oh, no, okay, for all of you, okay? You
and all of us.
We've done it together. Okay.
Really enriching, Monica, really enriching. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. I think that as Jaime was saying, next week you will welcome Gustavo, so don't miss that session. I think that he's off now. Probably he's having some internet connections or something that's failing at this time, as usual. It may happen. So thank you, all of you. Oh, there he is again. Hey, Jaime, we are wrapping up.
I know. Grab up, show up, everything with up. Thank you very much, Monica. I was looking for a dictionary to find the right words to thank you. This is the second time we have you. As I said at the beginning, I don't have the pleasure of having met you face to face, but every time we listen to you, I'm sure that everyone starts reflecting and thinking about this question that they taught us in Costa Rica. Why do you do what you do? I remember Marisol, Raj, I don't know if you remember, always asking, why do you do what you do? So every time we want to do something, I guess that is a good quote to remember. Why do you do what you do? Why are you shouting? Why are you teaching? Why are you doing this or that? So thank you, Monica, because as Gustavo said, we take so many reflections, so many quotes. I was writing many things, but then I started, then I said, no, it's too much. I'm gonna pay attention. So thank you very much, Monica. We have lots of things to learn from you. And now we have lots of things to reflect about. Thank you to my students. Thank you to everyone, everywhere in the world. And I'm sure that next year we'll be with you again together, talking about how to manage, regulate, and channel our intelligence and emotions. So they balance. Because both of them need one the other. Thank you very much. And next Sunday,
I would like to take the opportunity not only to thank you for inviting me once again, but also for creating and fostering this action space for all of us teachers, and for you that you put so much energy into creating this space. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you once again.
I just want to make one more comment, Jaime. I think, Monica, I'm so grateful for what you've shared and the activities. And I'm reminded that the students don't care how much we know till they know we care. Yeah.
That's
Right.
Exactly. I could not agree more with that
Empathy.
phrase.
That's
And then you know what happens? Everything that we want to share and teach will be valuable for them because they already know that we have acknowledged them and ourselves as teachers in our deep humanity. And when that happens, then after that it's just creation, you know?
Yeah.
well,
Thank
thank
you.
you one more time, Monica. In Argentina, it's lunchtime. In Canada, it's almost maybe.
It is. My husband is preparing an asado. You know that here we eat barbecues every
Right.
Sunday. So I'm really.
Oh, enjoy it.
So he's a good husband, like Ruben and me
Yes,
and
he is.
everyone else. He
It's
does the
cooking
dishes.
time.
He
Cooking
does the
time.
dishes too, I'm sure.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Bye-bye. See
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you
Take
so much.
care. Thank you, Jaime.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Beatriz. Thank you, Mauricio. Thanks, everyone. Ruben, Nora, Gloria.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ruben,
Thank
let's
you.
go.
Bye-bye.
Let's go cooking. Let's go cooking.
Yeah, it's getting late for cooking now.
What are you gonna cook today?